universe is crazy and I don't know what to do. So I made a podcast for me and for you. Pizza sauce and diggly digs, everybody loves a dig. Japanese girls and 80s flicks, rock and roll like Stevie Nicks. Mafia humors, elder rules, telling you what's wrong with school. Bruno James and Dan Marino, talking shit on people we know. Hockey fights and cracking beers, living life without no fear. Oh, my brain, what's inside? I don't know what to write.
Like weird Japanese shit.
Turtles and Hot Pockets. If you don't like those, I don't want to be friends.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Matt Manny. So certain things happen in our lives, you know, birth of a child, death of a family member, a bad breakup, all sorts of things, right? These key timeline occurrences that push us in different directions. I've had a few of them in my life, death of a friend or whatever. These human experiences that push us into new unknown territory, things that, you know, we all have to deal with, we all have to face, but it's completely unknown to you, and you need to really kind of become a new person, or it makes you become a new person, whatever you want to say. So I've been thinking a lot about really what the hell I'm doing on this planet, you know, not just like my purpose, like what is my purpose, but like what am I doing? What gets me excited? What makes me really work at my best, makes my mind push itself into a direction where I feel like it's really using its full capacity to take on something that could produce some sort of effect or work that has some impact beyond myself. So I got real reductionist with this and just really broke this down to like a fourth grade type science fair project of just asking a straight flat out question, giving an answer. And I think I'm going to sneeze. So I asked myself, what is the one problem that, if solved, would reduce the most human suffering? But is it access to food? Now, I don't know. This whole thing, they'll take this whole thing with a grain of salt. This is all just a hypothetical thought experiment that I kind of played with this morning. But is it access to food? So I'm going with that. So why, I have to ask, like, why are the billionaires of the world not addressing this now? They might be through some philanthropic organization that they have, but I do have to ask, you know, why are these people, one, not more interested in this? Like, why are they interested more in just like propagating their money? Like, maybe that's what it takes to maintain billions of dollars, but like Warren Buffett, for example, dude, you make money off of insurance and off of Coca-Cola, I mean, which I'll come back to that. But like these things that wouldn't it take a little bit of time, interest, and effort? I mean, if I had all that money at some point, I don't know what that dude's deal is really, because he just sits in Omaha. He has like the same bread. He's a dull turd, just has the same breakfast. Like he seems like he has all this grandfatherly wisdom and he's the greatest investor of all time. But like it's such a useless use of power, really. Like it's such a useless skill. It's like a superpower. Like he can count things in a jar. Like he's killing it. Just he travels the country and goes to different county fairs, and he's like 1,312 jelly beans, 5,607 pickles. Like it's amazing, yet completely really useless to so many people. Okay, he provides jobs for people and all that shit, but like I just never understand that. Like if I had this power, this access to money, I've done enough. I wouldn't be sitting like on a beach somewhere. You know what I mean? That wouldn't be sorry, I thought my levels. You know, I couldn't just like sit on a beach day in, day out and do that whole thing. I'd have to be engaged with projects that I found super interesting. So again, let's come back to this number one problem, access to world food. Why these people aren't throwing a few $1 billion at it and aren't interested in it, I don't know, but this is going to be my attempt to kind of tackle this with a hypothetical solution and see if, you know, maybe we just get thinking in a different way, in a new direction. So let's say one hypothetical scenario is a possible solution to world hunger is sustainable vertical hydroponic farming. Okay, now for that to work, there's going to be problems that we need to overcome. One is space. Is there space for these things? Well, if we drill this down even to more, like let's just get rid of food deserts within the US, these areas of the US where they don't have access to healthy fresh produce, fresh food, and it's all just processed packaged shit, the kind of stuff, that the Warren Buffetts of the world make money off of and that they sell at Walmart and these types of things, not to vilify them, but it's just the kind of stuff that you can get there. So just solving that. Space isn't a problem because these food deserts have nothing there. There's generally, barren landscapes, stretches of the country where it's very rural. There isn't much going on. So building some vertical farms wouldn't be an issue in terms of space. The bigger issue, and probably why this stuff isn't happening right now, is it needs to be financially viable. Now, the next question would be, okay, this is a solution, but it's not financially viable. So then the next logical question would be, how do we make this financially viable? Well, my thought process was, this is just a hypothetical, is that we use some sort of cash crop that then subsidizes all of the other things that are grown. So in this example, I'd say you use marijuana and some portion of every vertical farm is dedicated to growing marijuana. Then that's sold either locally in dispensaries or throughout the US or internationally, whatever. Just that's the thing that you can sell for enough money that then subsidizes the growing of the corn, carrots, lettuce, all these things that don't bring in a lot of money, but are necessary to solve this food issue. Again, I didn't look into all the details of this, but from my base knowledge, most of the farming in the US is subsidized anyway. So I understand there's a lot of complications to get this done with like high-powered agricultural lobbyists, and it's people's income and their livelihood and all this stuff, which, that's kind of another problem. But it seems like if you're subsidizing these crops anyway, you could just basically give these people some form of like universal basic income at this point and just pay them off, because that's kind of a problem that's already being solved with a not great solution. So just keep that solution going. The bigger issue here is getting people access to food. So either way, coming back to this, the weed subsidizes the crops, man. So that was my thought process. And I did try to look into this a little bit, just to get an idea. Again, I don't think I have the answers. This is just a hypothetical. Why aren't people asking these questions? And I'm sure they are. Here, this article I have here, the economic viability of vertical farming, overcoming financial obstacles. This is from Duke. They have the Nicholas School of the Environment. So again, I'm sure there are people working on these things. I'm just confused why most of the U.S. crop, from my knowledge, is dedicated to corn and I believe soybeans. And it's like the corn's mostly for like corn syrup, for junk, for Coca-Cola and snack foods and all this bullshit that people like Warren Buffett make billions off of. Why aren't you throwing a couple $1 million just at a couple of test projects? Like go to Alabama, go to wherever these food deserts are. I don't even think it would take millions. I don't have data here, but just throw some money at one of these projects just to test it out, just to start poking, exploring. I don't understand if you had that much money, it doesn't matter at that point. That's like nothing. That's like somebody on the street asking me for $1. I just go, sure, bud, whatever. It doesn't make any sense that people aren't. And my hope is that just we start exploring a little bit more of this stuff. Like I would love to have somebody on who is an expert in this stuff. I don't have that power right now, but I'd love to have these kinds of conversations about like, hey, why don't we play around with this? Is this an option? Because I was thinking like, urban environments. One, I think it would be cool to have these structures built with all these plants and stuff, and it would look cool. It would change the landscape of our cities. And if you look in like China, some of the most modern cities there, they have the benefit of being built in the last decade. For example, U.S. cities are old in the aspect that, they were built, 200 years ago or so. And then we've just kind of had to work on whatever structure was there. So like Philadelphia was built on a grid structure. We've kind of had to work within that. Whereas these Chinese cities can be built completely more or less from the ground up. But there's a couple, I believe, in like Guangzhou or there's one I can't think of now. But there's one, it's like super green and modern. Like all the buildings have plants on it and stuff. And it's like, people always say, oh, the pollution in China. The thing is, yeah, that exists. But at the same time, they're probably going to be the ones that are going to change a lot of this stuff a lot faster than the rest of the world for two reasons. One, they have the benefit of seeing all of the technology and all of the things that the rest of the world has done, and they're kind of starting from scratch. Two, they don't have any of the red tape and bullshit that other countries have to go through with, oh, we're trying to do this, but there's obstacles, there's these lobbyists, there's people, blah, blah, blah. It's a communist country. They're just push it through. They're just going to go, here's what you're going to do now. There's not going to be any more gas cars. All buildings need to be built with green initiatives and trees and plants and, energy saving windows and glass and all these different power systems. So honestly, they're going to be probably the ones that are going to figure this shit out way before we are. But if you look at that stuff, it's also interesting. You see these pictures of these cities and it's pretty, maybe I'll just find one. Let me see. Green city in China. Liuzhou, futuristic green city. I mean, some of these aren't even real images. It's weird when you're living in China, they do hand out, you'll see like pamphlets on the floor in the subway, or on the subway, there's like a little mini screen and it'll show like almost like a timeshare ad that you can buy for like these future cities that they're building. And it's like these weird, like they're all self-contained. And you're just like, what is this? Like, it's very odd looking at it. And then you're like, is this real? Like, what is going on? So it doesn't seem like China's building green cities, but struggling to find residents. Now, see, these aren't the ones. I'm not talking about like the ones they're currently building. There are some that are already, they're not completely from the scratch. It's going to keep coming up with these like headline grabbing. Tianjin, is that it? Like some of them are already exist and they're just cool looking. These are all like concept drawings. Ugh, that's annoying. No, none of these are real. Yeah, that's what's real. It's just a dirt lot and a scammy construction. Look at this shit. So much of it's nonsense though. Yeah, that's the thing. There are, what's the one right next to Hong Kong? That one's nice too, isn't he? Shenzhen. Yeah, Shenzhen's pretty. Let me see. Shenzhen's pretty green. Is that real? Yeah, I think that's real. Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff in the US like this too, probably in like Seattle or something. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a nice, clean city. So anyway, as I was saying, I just don't know why this stuff isn't being explored. And when I did look into it, there are some issues, factors that lead to changing from. Okay, so it's vertical farming effective in the long. So apparently this article says that you can produce twice on vertical farms than on a conventional farm. Obviously, you can probably push things closer together because a lot of these are, based on hydroponics, so you don't need as much soil coverage, but also you're just stacking it up. So the square footage, the area of the ground is going to be less. But it seems like it says they're more profitable on large scale applications. So that's what I'm talking about. You build one unit that works and then just reproduce it. I mean, you see these like wind farms, they just built the design for one generator and you just keep reproducing these either in a coastal area or in a very rural area where there's efficient amount of wind to power these things. So it's like, I just don't know why this isn't being worked on when it seems like a lot of the stuff is out there. Like my thought process was the inner city, like I was saying, it would look cool, but then also when you drive through Philadelphia in the one neighborhood, there's like this Fishtown neighborhood. It's very, gentrified, people are into this kind of stuff. There's one of them Carvana towers. So it's like you have this tower of like 5 stories of glass holding cars in the middle of this town. And even that kind of looks cool. It's like, why can't you use something like that where it's just a giant tower, basically a greenhouse, hydroponic greenhouse that's growing stuff locally. You get the weed, put it right out to the like local dispensaries. I'm sure there's probably some process that needs to dry or something, but whatever. You build that nearby as well. And then you got fresh veggies. It helps the city. It helps the economy. There's less transport costs and there's less transport footprint of, carbon footprint. So you got all these things. It's just odd. It's like we got Carvana. Why not Cropvana? Cropvana. So it's, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this. Oh, what's this say? The best time to invest in vertical farms now. For example, leading investors such as SoftBank, Aero Farms, and Bright Farms pump more than $200 million into vertical farming. Okay, so some people are doing it. I just don't know why it's not more prevalent or why we're not working on this in terms of people really being interested. I guess people don't give a shit, but it just seems like with the Elon Musk is like, dude, like this could actually solve people's problems, help a lot of people out, feed people. Even if you get to Mars, man, we're not bringing everybody along and it isn't going to solve the issues that we still have here. Like if you get like 3,000 people to Mars, let's say, the rest of the people are still going to be here struggling with the same problem. So you might as well try to work on mitigating them or solving some of them, in novel ways. It's just odd to me. The whole thing is very weird. What else we got going on here? This was a good article too. Cannabis and the environment. So the environmental impact of growing weed, there might be some issues. Apparently it might take more water. But again, you figure all these things out. That's what I'm saying is like, let's work on these problems. Okay, it takes too much water. It's not sustainable. How can we make it sustainable? Like it's such a basic thing to ask these questions. Like, okay, how do we then? And then work on it. I'm not saying it's an easy solution. It's just even asking the question, it seems like it's not happening. And then what I was thinking was this could also be beneficial for the crops themselves because there's a potential it's really hard to find, but there's a potential that weed could be a great companion crop for a lot of vegetables and things that we could actually eat. I've seen already that a lot of herbs, basil or like scented things like lavender and all these things are great companion crops to help weed grow better and it keeps away pests and all these types of things. But like, it's very hard to find any real research, probably because this stuff has been, because of, weed's illegal, all this type of nonsense. It even says it in here, as government regulates this formerly illegal crop, there is an urgent need to understand how cannabis may impact the environment. So because it's been illegal, it's really kind of truncated the ability to do research on this type of stuff. But we could find out that using weed not only helps the financial viability, but it also helps the crops grow by having, like, let's say the top 4 or 5 layers of one of these glass towers is just dedicated to weed. It helps the other vegetables underneath grow better, and it can like recirculate nutrients and all this kind of shit. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm just saying, like, I just wish there was more like Iron Man style engineering going on out there. I don't have the ability or the financial capacity or any of this stuff, but I have the wonder, the imagination, the interest. Like, let's just get people into this shit and let's start finding solutions, novel, fun. So, like, wouldn't that be fun too? You look out like, hey kids, there's the weed tower. That's where our vegetables came from. And it's fun, let's start going to the fun solution instead of it's always just like this slog through political, like the crop people, the agriculture people don't want to. It's always just garbage and whining and piss. Like, why can't it just be fun? Like, yeah, dude, we're going to make weed towers and they're going to feed people. Like, have a little fun with it. It just never feels like we're going in that direction. I think we need more of it. Anyway, that's enough of this shit for today. I do want to get back into this subject at some point. If anybody knows anything, I'd love to hear more. If anybody wants to talk about it, I'd love to. Maybe I should reach out to like the Nicholas School of the Environment. I want to learn. I want to know more about this stuff and just see, like, how can we make this a reality? It sounds stupid and I'm just one person, but as I am trying to see, like, what can I do with my life? If I can get these conversations going, then you get enough pressure on people. It's easy for me to sit here and sling feces at these billionaires because I don't have any access to them. I don't know how to talk. They're easy to vilify. For all I know, maybe they are interested. I'm sure they have limited time as a resource. So maybe if I sat down with these people and was like, hey, man, look, this could be a cool project we could work on. They might be like, yeah, you know what? I just never, I'm focused on what I'm doing right now and just never really thought about it. We could take some resources, some time, a subsect of what we're doing. Because even if you look at like Tesla as a car, do we need those cars? No. Is it going to probably push, ingenuity and technology and all these different things? Yes. So then why don't we take things like these batteries or that AI that they have access to and apply it to these things? I think we could. And I think that could be, a great solution, because putting these things there, they need to be self-sustaining, especially if you put them in rural areas. You need some kind of AI that's regulating the nutrients, the lighting, the watering, all of that stuff. But then also you need people in those areas being trained for that stuff. So it's job creation, it's all of that. Then the batteries that they're using, we could use these batteries and solar power to keep these things operating. Like, we could take this stuff from these cars and apply it. So again, I'm not trying to bash these people. I just wish, these conversations would be had with these people and then pushed a little bit. And again, they might wind up being interested. It's just a matter of time as a resource. But anyway, that's enough of this crap for today. I'll see you next time. Here's the thing.
Yeah, man, come on. Yeah.
Everyone thinks not doing shit's easy, but it's not. Fucking
I'm gonna get weird and go paint some stuff.
That's enough of this bullshit for one day.
Sometimes you just gotta slam them fuckers. Oh, sure.